I just landed at Reykjavík Keflavík International on board what was Icelandair's only A321 at the time of making this video. I will be continuing on to Boston on one of Icelandair's rare aircraft, the Boeing 767. Unlike the 757 in their fleet, where they used to have 44 of them operating but are now down to 8, they never had more than 10 Boeing 767s in the Icelandair fleet. According to PlaneSpotter's.net, of the Boeing 767s they once had, they are down to just 5, 2 of which are cargo, and 1 of which is currently parked for maintenance, meaning they are down to just 2 active 767s in their fleet flying passengers. As mentioned previously, I'll be taking this aircraft down to Boston, which is one of the routes this Icelandair 767 tends to frequent a lot, along with JFK, Copenhagen, and occasionally London Heathrow. My aircraft for this flight down to Boston will be TF-ISO, a Boeing 767-300 that was originally delivered to Air New Zealand in April of 2000 and came to Icelandair in February of 2016, but flew for many airlines between that, of which I'll put the history of the aircraft on the screen since there are a lot of them. As I mentioned previously in the video, one of the 3 current active passenger 767s in their fleet is currently stored and says maintenance, and that happens to be this aircraft I'm flying on in this video. I took this flight in mid-December 2024, with the last flight this aircraft taking being on January 9th, 2025, as a red-eye into Iceland, landing around 2:30 in the morning local time. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the name of this aircraft, so I'm just going to put it on the screen, and is a Tuya volcano located about a 2-hour drive east of Reykjavík. The Saga cabin on the Icelandair 767s is a little bit unique, and sits in a 2-1-2 configuration. My seat in this cabin would be 3A, and waiting for me at my seat was a pillow, blanket, as well as Icelandic water. Before pushing back from the gate, they also came around with champagne, orange juice, as well as a box of macaroons.
The estimated time to Boston is 6 hours. The piloting command is Christian Gurvinsson. My name is Husby Sonsdottir and I'm the supervisor on this flight. Hand luggage will be placed in an overhead compartment.
Placed in the seat pocket in front of you. This Boeing 767 aircraft has 8 emergency exits. All exits are equipped with evacuation lights.
let's go over some of the features of Saga class before the meal comes out. They handed out noise-canceling headphones to all the passengers in Saga for you to borrow during the flight. Icelandair's IFE offers many options like videos about Icelandair, movies, TV, popular music, videos about Iceland, as well as information about Saga Club. Similar to the other planes in the Icelandair fleet, Saga class seats have a footrest. On the front of the seat there is a power outlet. On the side of the screen there was a USB-A port as well as a headphone jack. There was a drink menu, as well as a menu for the food on board the flight, with it consisting of a starter, the main course, followed by a dessert. For the main course they had a choice of a hot or a cold option, and unfortunately by the time they got to me in the third row they were already out of the cold option, which was a Christmas platter. For those in Saga, the tray table comes out of the armrest. About 20 minutes after takeoff, they came around with the pre-meal snack, which was cheese bread along with your drink of choice. About an hour after takeoff is when the meal came out. The starter was bread whipped with butter and Icelandic blueberry salt, beetroot marinated smoked salmon with dill oil and pickled mustard seeds. The main course for me was a warm option, which was duck confit with creamy barley, roasted carrots, and mushroom sauce, and the dessert was caramelized apples with gingerbread crumble. Like I mentioned, for the main course they did have a cold option, which was a Christmas platter, but they had already run out by the time they got to me in row 3. But I'm not too disappointed about that, as I'm sure I'm gonna fly on the airline again at some point. About 45 minutes or so after the meal came out, passengers were pretty much done with it, so it got cleaned up when we all settled in for the rest of the flight. I took this time to go over the Icelandair Saga class amenity kit, which is made from recycled materials. And not just the bag itself, but some of the stuff inside of it is also made from recycled materials as well. In the bag there was an eye mask, some postcards with Icelandic flora and fauna on them, earplugs, moisturizer, hand lotion, as well as socks and a toothbrush, which again is made from recycled material. I'm sure some of the other items besides the toothbrush and the postcards were made from recycled materials, but it was obvious that at least those two have been. I settled in for the rest of the flight and actually even fell asleep for the next 3 to 4 hours. When I woke up, we were about 45 minutes away from landing, and we were passing over the US-Canada border in far eastern Maine. It wasn't very long before the flight attendant started cleaning up the cabin and getting it ready for our arrival into Boston. I had a great flight in Icelandair's Saga class as usual, on board their rare for them Boeing 767. Even if the aircraft I took this trip on, TFISO, does return out of maintenance and storage, the airline is still only going to have 3 passenger 767s, making it a super unique and super rare experience for the passengers that do end up flying on it. If you want to fly on one of Icelandair's 767s, you still have time, as the replacement of these aircraft is not a priority for the airline, with them focusing more on getting rid of the 757s with their new incoming A321s. But until the day comes when they do retire it from their fleet, you can see this aircraft operating routes to Boston, JFK, and New York City, as well as varying destinations in Europe, which at this point include Copenhagen and London Heathrow.